For many centuries, Christianity has been the dominant religion in the Western Hemisphere. Our law codes have been based on Judeo-Christian values. Our work week is oriented around Christian gatherings and ordinances. Our holiday calendar celebrates Christian events. There are families who have been Christian families for generations. For the most part, there has not been a lot of persecution in the West. Many Christians who grew up in the Western Hemisphere have the mindset that life as a Christian should be this way. It should be easy. It is not a stretch to say many feel entitled to live lives free of harassment and oppression. However, this is not what Jesus foretold about Christianity. In fact, he warned us that life would be the opposite. One of the passages where Jesus was clear about this is known as the Olivet Discourse. As Jesus and his disciples were walking out of the temple, one of his disciples commented on the wonderful buildings. The temple and surrounding platform had been enlarged and rebuilt by Herod. When Jesus was doing his ministry, the temple complex was a huge collection of fabulous buildings. Jesus warned his disciples that the temple was going to be destroyed. Later, Jesus and his disciples were sitting on the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is a hill that overlooked the temple. From that vantage point, they had an excellent view of the temple. Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked Jesus when the temple was going to be destroyed. Let's pick up reading at Mark 13, verse 5. And Jesus began to say to them, "See to it that no one deceives you." So the first thing Jesus did was warn his disciples against being deceived. This is a warning we should take seriously as well. Verse 6. Many will come in my name saying, "I am he," and will mislead many. Throughout church history and even in our lifetimes, there are many who have claimed to be Jesus. Verse 7. And when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will also be famines. These things are merely the beginning of birth pains. So wars, earthquakes, and famines are to be expected during the church age. Many Christians have the mindset that life should be easy. However, wars, famines, and earthquakes do not lead to lives of tranquility. They do the opposite. Verse 9. But see to yourselves, for they will deliver you to the courts, and you will be beaten in the synagogues, and you will stand before governors and kings for my sake as a witness to them. And the gospel must first be proclaimed to all the nations. So Jesus told his disciples they would be persecuted. This does not mean all Christians will be persecuted, but it should not surprise us when Christians are oppressed. Verse 11. And when they lead you away, delivering you up, do not worry beforehand about what you are to say, but say whatever is given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but it is the Holy Spirit. And brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and have them put to death. This is a statement about things that will happen during the church age. Family members will betray each other. Being betrayed by family is perhaps one of the most devastating events a person can experience. Verse 13. And you will be hated by all because of my name, but the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. Jesus notified the disciples that they would be hated because of his name. This has been a reality throughout the church age. Many Christians have been hated for serving Jesus. For many centuries, Christianity has been the dominant religion in the Western Hemisphere. There are families who have been Christian families for generations. Therefore, there has not been a lot of persecution in the West. This has led Christians who grew up in the West to often have the mindset that Christians are entitled to live lives free of oppression. However, Jesus taught his disciples to expect the opposite. Some of Jesus' statements on this topic apply to the entirety of the church age, meaning we should not expect life as a Christian to be free of pain. Instead, we should accept that suffering for Jesus can and does happen everywhere. Verse 14. But when you see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, that the reader understand, then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. The abomination of desolation is something Daniel wrote about in Daniel 11 and Daniel 12. There was an abomination in the time period between the Old Testament and the New Testament. There will be another abomination in the future during the tribulation. Up through verse 13, Jesus spoke about the church age. Beginning with verse 14, Jesus spoke of events during the tribulation. Verse 15. And the one who is on the housetop must not go down, or go in to get anything out of his house. And the one who is in the field must not turn back to get his garment. But woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing babies in those days. But pray that it may not happen in the winter. For those days will be a time of tribulation such as has not occurred since the beginning of the creation which God created until now and never will. This verse speaks to the severity of the tribulation. It will be the worst time in world history. Verse 20. And unless the Lord had shortened those days, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he chose, he shortened the days. And then, if anyone says to you, Behold, here's the Christ, or Behold, he is there, do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show signs and wonders in order to lead astray, if possible, the elect. But as for you, see, I have told you everything in advance. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers that are in the heavens will be shaken. Notice the word after in verse 24. Starting with verse 24, Jesus spoke about how the tribulation would end and what would happen after the tribulation. Verse 26. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send forth the angels and will gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest end of the earth to the farthest end of heaven. At the end, Jesus will gather all his elect. For many centuries, Christianity has been the dominant religion in the Western Hemisphere. Our law codes, work week, and holiday calendars are oriented around living the Christian life. There are families who have been Christian families for generations. For the most part, there has not been a lot of persecution in the West. Many Christians who grow up in the Western Hemisphere have the mindset that life as a Christian should be this way. They feel entitled, live lives free of harassment and oppression. However, this is not what Jesus promised about Christianity. Jesus warned his disciples they would experience deception, war, earthquakes, famines, beatings, and trials. Jesus foretold that throughout the church age we will experience all of that, plus betrayals and hate. As Christians, our goal should be to fulfill the Great Commission and produce societies where Christianity is the dominant religion. However, at the same time, we need to keep in mind that we are not entitled to live lives free of oppression, persecution, and torture. The world hates and is opposed to Jesus. Therefore, the world will hate and oppose anyone who stands with Jesus. Anyone who becomes a servant of Jesus and attempts to live life the way Jesus wants us to live should not expect an easy life. Instead, we should be prepared for opposition, hate, persecution from the world. Thanks for visiting Bible Mountain. If you have already joined my email list, thank you, and please tell others about Bible Mountain. If you have not joined my email list yet, please do so now. In order to join, go to BibleMountain.com, click on subscribe, and that will take you to a page where you can sign up. Your email address will not be sold nor given away. Once again, thanks for visiting Bible Mountain.